With Sonic X Shadow Generations just around the corner to releasing, there's no better time to delve into the story of the infamous lookalike of Sonic the Hedgehog. Shadow, in my opinion, has one of the most complex and deep origins in this franchise. This is gonna be a good one, so I recommend you either grab popcorn or a chili dog and sit back. My name is Expendable, and welcome to my complete recap of Shadow the Hedgehog. Shadow was created by a man named Gerald Robotnik for the purpose of achieving immortality. This decision was pressed upon Professor Robotnik by the government. The government wanted this life form made to make an immortal army, but Gerald had other means to going through with the project. His granddaughter, Maria, who had an illness called NIDS, or NIDS, could have possibly been cured with the creation of this life form. NIDS is a fictional illness, but it seemed that it was terminal to Maria's life, and thriving in a low-gravity environment seemed to help with the effects. This led to her living with Gerald in a hidden government laboratory in space, known as the Space Colony Ark. Although Professor Robotnik had the scientific genius needed to go about creating the life form, he was limited by the technology of his world and time, and the process was somewhat bumpy. The prototype of the ultimate life form was modeled after a lizard, and Professor Robotnik had a means to give it many unique abilities. The creature was able to regenerate dead cells and limbs, asexually reproduce, manipulate gravity and energy, and even use chaos control. However, when it was created, it was highly unstable and needed to be attached to life support immediately. This life support was powered by chaos drives, a power source created by Professor Robotnik using small amounts of chaos emerald energy in a small capsule. As far as we know, chaos drives were tested on smaller organisms and were capable of expressing infinite amounts of energy. When the Biolizard was sustained in a somewhat healthy condition, more problems seemed to arise. When exposed to the chaos emeralds, it acted aggressive and violent, and it expressed power too difficult to control by the likes of Gerald or anybody else at the time. Due to this, Professor Robotnik imprisoned it away in the core of the Space Colony Ark. After the failure of the Biolizard, Gerald went back to the starting board and started creation of a new creature. This creature he had higher hopes for, and it would define the project for the ultimate life, Project Shadow. This creature was not going to be a giant lizard this time. He would be a smaller organism that has a more human-like figure, with the exception that he is, of course, a hedgehog. However, Gerald was having difficulty cracking the code to giving Project Shadow ultimate life, and things were taking too long. The government was growing impatient, and Maria's illness was getting worse. This leads to the immaculate timing of a giant asteroid passing by Earth's orbit, which happens to be the home of an alien race known as the Black Arms. The Black Arms are an evil alien race that is organized and run by the leader, Black Doom. The entire Black Arms species are a hive mind controlled by the Black Doom, and they also have the ability to harness chaos control. They all live on this giant rock called the Black Comet, and it passes by the Earth every 50 years. They also have this thing with world domination. Going back to Gerald, he was growing frustrated and the Black Arms happened to be passing by. The Black Doom came to Gerald and presented a deal, where he can lend the professor his blood in return for Project Shadow's loyalty 50 years later. Gerald agreed, seeing this as an absolute win, for with the Black Doom's seemingly immortal DNA and power to possess chaos control, he can cure Maria in no time. After importing the Black Doom's blood into Project Shadow, things were looking very positive. The ultimate life form was successfully created, and he was given the name Shadow the Hedgehog. After the success of Shadow, Gerald began to realize the mistake he had made by negotiating with the Black Arms. They posed a massive threat to Earth and humanity, and with the Shadow to help gather them the 7 Chaos Emeralds, human termination would be inevitable. To potentially counteract this, Gerald did multiple things. The first was modifying the mind of Shadow to resist the influence of the Black Doom, even though he was part of the hive mind due to his blood. The second measure taken was the creation of the Eclipse Cannon, a giant laser cannon designed to blow up the Black Comet on sight. After all this was finished and ready, Shadow was allowed to be awakened and roam the Ark complex with Maria, who he saw as a sister. Maria was his #1 priority, and her health was as important to him as it was to Gerald. Shadow and Maria also often had discussions about Earth and what it's like down there, and if it's even worth living amongst other humans. The friendship between Shadow and Maria grew very strong over their time together. However, this changed very quickly. The Guardian Units of Nations, also known as G.U.N, was growing suspicious of the activities occurring in the Space Colony Ark. The experiments were taking too long, and Professor Robotnik refused to cease operations. This led to investigations and discovery of many accidents such as the Biolizard and the deal with Black Doom. Other incidents were discovered, such as the rebellion of Artificial Chaos and the destructive behavior of a mimicking robot, Emerald, after being introduced to military equipment. I would dive deeper into these incidents, but they don't directly tie into the story of Shadow too much, so for now it's gonna be left like that. With the newfound knowledge of these incidents, the government decided that the Space Colony Ark was becoming a hazard and continuing its operation would be unsafe. This led to gun soldiers raiding the Ark and eliminating all projects and witnesses of said projects. In the raid, all Ark researchers were terminated, and all experiments were destroyed. Shadow tried desperately to save Maria, but in the end, she too was terminated by gun soldiers. Professor Robotnik was captured and imprisoned, and Shadow, being the only perfect ultimate life form, was taken by the government and put into suspended animation via a capsule. The government held Shadow in a cryogenic stasis in Prison Island for 50 years. 50 years after Shadow was put on ice, the events of Sonic Adventure 2 began to unfold, and Shadow's story begins anew. After being reawakened by Dr. Eggman, Shadow lives most of his days from this point, holding loyal to his command, with very little memory of his time at the Space Colony Ark. Throughout the events of Sonic Adventure 2, he has small flashes of the Ark, Gerald Robotnik, and Maria. In one particular flashback, Shadow can recall Maria saying something about fulfilling something to her, but Shadow is foggy on what that was. He eventually is led to believe that seeking vengeance against humanity will avenge her dying wish, after what G.U.N did to his loved ones on the Ark. As time goes on, however, particularly when the battle against Sonic and Eggman gets to the Ark station itself, Shadow starts to remember far more about Maria and his true meaning. Amy makes herself useful for the first time in the game by helping Shadow remember the final wish Maria wanted Shadow to fulfill for her. After this awakening, Shadow returns back into action, but this time on the side of Sonic and friends. Things take a sudden turn though, for when Eggman brings all 7 Chaos Emeralds to the Ark, a message is revealed by Professor Gerald Robotnik, explaining that now with a boiling anger against humanity for what they did to Maria, he reprogrammed the Space Colony Ark to crash into the Earth once all 7 emeralds were gathered in it. Sonic and Knuckles need to enter the Eclipse Cannon to remove the 7 Chaos Emeralds, but a new threat emerges that brings Shadow's past back to haunt him yet again. The Biolizard, still alive and suffering, awakes from its sleep and starts acting violently, just as it did 50 years ago. Shadow sees this as a really good opportunity to prove that he is the true ultimate life form and fights it, coming out victorious in the end. When Shadow fights the Biolizard, Sonic and Knuckles have more time to deactivate the Eclipse Cannon, and all succeeded, and things seem on track to get better. After Shadow meets back with everyone else, the Biolizard, infuriated now, channels Chaos Control to fuse itself with the Eclipse Cannon on the exterior of the Ark Station, guiding the space colony down to Earth itself. This turns the Biolizard into the even more deadly Final Hazard. Sonic and Shadow channel the 7 Chaos Emeralds to go super and take down the Final Hazard. After a tough and memorable fight, the Final Hazard is defeated, but the space colony Ark has already entered the Earth's orbit and was about to collide. As a final push to save all people Maria cared about, Shadow channels as much of his power as he can, combined with the power of the Chaos Emeralds, and uses Chaos Control to move the entire Ark back into orbit. This drains all of his energy, and he falls back down to Earth, seemingly dead. After Sonic and friends mourn Shadow for like 3 minutes, this concludes his adventures for Sonic Adventure 2. Some unidentified amount of time after the events of Sonic Adventure 2, Shadow suffers from heavy amnesia, not fully remembering who he is or what happened in his past again. Although he did seemingly fall to his death at the end of SA2, Eggman's robots found him in critical condition, but alive. He was held in a healing pod at one of Eggman's bases and treated back to full health. When Shadow was healing though, Eggman studied his anatomy and began making androids of Shadow, hoping to possibly create an army of ultimate life forms. Throughout the entirety of his time with Team Dark, Shadow has a lot of internal inflictions, wondering if he could be one of the androids himself. Trying to disregard this, he works to defeat Neo Metal Sonic at the end of the hero story, yet he still wonders who or what he is. It's finally been exactly 50 years after Professor Gerald Robotnik made the deal with the Black Doom, and the day of reckoning for Earth has finally come. The Black Comet returns, and the Black Doom proceeds with his invasion, as according to his plan. He contacts Shadow and informs him that he can tell him about his past if he agrees to provide him the 7 Chaos Emeralds. Shadow is put on a complicated journey to discover who he is, and he has a lot of options to join here, including the Black Arms, G.U.N, Sonic and Friends, or even Dr. Eggman. He ultimately decides to refuse joining the Black Arms and G.U.N, and decides to save the world but on his own terms. G.U.N Commander Abraham Tower also has a vendetta against Shadow once learning about his existence, because as a child, he used to live on the space colony Ark, for his parents were researchers for Project Shadow. Abe saw the deal between Black Doom and Gerald Robotnik and believes he is responsible for the death of his friend Maria. However, throughout the events of Shadow the Hedgehog, it is proven to Abe that Shadow isn't the villain he thought he was, and was on the same quest to avenge Maria. Eggman also informs Shadow that he is truly the original ultimate life form.
Shadow, can you hear me? This might be the last chance I have to speak to you, so what I said about having created you, it was all a lie. Everyone thought you died during that horrible incident, but I rescued you with one of my robots. You lost your memory, that's all. You really are the ultimate life form my grandfather created.
And this gives Shadow enough confidence needed to face the Black Doom. The Black Doom finds his way to retrieving the 7 Chaos Emeralds and attempts to bind the Black Comet to Earth, emitting a gas that the Black Arms are immune to, but drives everyone else powerless. Shadow is immune to this gas due to his Black Arms blood, and uses this to channel the 7 Chaos Emeralds and fight the final form of Black Doom, known as Devil Doom. After defeating the Black Arms and saving the world, Shadow's amnesia is now gone and he remembers all there is to know about his past with Gerald Robotnik, Maria, and his origins with the Black Arms. The next major series of events for Shadow the Hedgehog appear in Sonic 06, where he is now an agent of G.U.N and fully restored of all memories. Shadow joins G.U.N after the events of Shadow the Hedgehog due to Commander Abe's false accusations and apology. Shadow continues to work with Rouge as he did in Sonic Heroes with the inclusion of E123 Omega. Shadow has a falling out with Mephiles in this game, who claims to know about Shadow's future. This game doesn't express much on Shadow's character, besides the fact that he shows mastery of chaos control and also his status as an anti-hero. Shadow grows more of a Batman-like personality, preferring to stay by himself, but coming to aid his friends when necessary. Now, Sonic X Shadow Generations hasn't come out yet, so I don't got much to say about this, and I won't say much besides what's already confirmed. With releases such as the Sonic X Shadow Generations Dark Beginning 3-part prologue, a lot is cleared up about what's going on immediately before the events of the game. In Episode 1, it's revealed to us that Emerald was part of the G.U.N Raid on the Space Colony Ark, which for as far as I know, he was reprogrammed by the military with the sole intent of destroying everything involving Project Shadow. It also seems as if Shadow was given this vision of the Ark. It wasn't just some odd nightmare. The center of this message must have been the Black Doom. It's also confirmed that Shadow once knew about his origins of the Black Doom's blood when Maria was still alive. We can also see that this does place very shortly before Sonic Generations. Firstly, and most obviously, because Rouge asked Shadow to attend Sonic the Hedgehog's birthday. And secondly, because the Eggman robots they were attacking were the same models in the game Sonic Colors, the game released just before Generations. Shadow also speculates that the Black Arms have returned, relating to his vision in Episode 1. Shadow shows even further perfection of chaos control in Episode 3, using it flawlessly to avoid and intercept missiles in combat. After the very sad ending of the last episode, we can confirm that there is some threat that involves the Black Arms aboard the Space Colony Ark, and it is calling to Shadow. As I'm recording this, the bonus ending just came out for the prologue, and it's confirmed it's Black Doom on the Space Colony Ark, which will make complete sense for the initial vision Shadow had in Episode 1. The question that lies is, how did the Black Doom remain alive after the events of Shadow the Hedgehog, and how does this directly tie into Generations? I don't know for sure, so for now, that's quite literally everything you need to know about Shadow the Hedgehog. If you want to know even more, I highly recommend you consider purchasing Sonic X Shadow Generations, and I will be making a video on the game as soon as I can. I really hope you guys enjoyed my first video based on the Sonic franchise. I absolutely loved writing the script. Please comment down your comments. Please comment your thoughts down below if you'd like. It'd be highly appreciated. But until next time, Sonic Squad, enjoy your day and peace out.